Hey, this is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the podcast today, I have Ryan Mendonca. Ryan, where are you at, and what are you up to?
Well, I think you had to talk to my brother, a few weeks ago. So, located in Windsor, Ontario. I actually personally live just outside of Windsor in Tecumseh, Ontario. My wife and I just bought our first house together out here. So about 10, 15-minute drive from university. So it keeps me close to home. And what am I up to? Well, I work, luckily full-time in football. So I get to have a balance between, the University of Windsor, where I'm the men's, soccer coach there. And I'm the sporting director of a club, Tecumseh Soccer Club, or a high performance club in Ontario. So, a year into the pandemic, I've learned a lot more about health and safety and logistics and mitigating risk and all those things I never thought I would, but happy to be back out on the field right now. And the sun is shining. The sun was shining this weekend. So it's, exciting to be out there.
And how long have you been the head coach there at Windsor?
So this is year 3. I've been 2 seasons and a pandemic is how long I've been there. So, so this is my 3rd year, finishing my 3rd year, going into my 4th.
Do you feel like now, getting into that 3rd, 4th year, that you're starting to find your niche and kind of build the program that you want there at Windsor?
Yeah. So when we came in, I got hired late in the cycle. Meaning like in April, meaning my recruiting class was kind of already in. One of my first tasks was to call every recruit and to make sure we retain them, getting an understanding of, what was promised to them, be a scholarship over their expectations. Luckily, I think part of my role or reason why I was an advantage, why I got the hire or why they sought me out at that time was because I had a connection with a lot of the men's youth in the city, and I knew a lot of the players incoming, and they knew me, or if they hadn't been coached by me, of me, I guess would be the best way to say it. But yeah, like Threestep plan, it was, first year was change the way we think. Second year was change the way we act. And then this year was about change the way we play. Unfortunately, we didn't get to change the way we play. We didn't play, and training's been a start and stop. But I really think we've gained a good grasp of where we want to be foundation-wise for the culture of our program. I think there's steps forward we have to take in terms of compete level and where we see our championship vision at. But we all understand our starting point now. So we're at a better place to take steps forward together, I think, players and staff.
So for that first step, that initial year, what were some of the things that you wanted to make sure that you put into place for your program?
I mean, the number one thing I started with was just, was about listening. The number one step that I think the most valuable piece of advice I ever read or take was, and it's not, I have to remind myself of this sometimes, is be the last to speak in a room or in a group. That sometimes you can learn a lot more from listening, and not only to what people say, but how they say it or how they interact, and how people are jockeying social status or they're going after the hierarchy in a conversation, and the wisest people in the room oftentimes speak last. So not that I'm the wisest, but I could try to act like the wisest and speak last. So I think it was listening to alumni that I knew from the program and the current players about what they want and where their goals are. The first thing I did was my first act as head coach was in our first meeting was did a lot of small group sessions and brought on what we saw as what we thought our goals should be for the summer, what we thought our needs, wants, and desires were for preseason, during season, and postseason. And I do a lot of group exercises like that, like you would do at like a workshop or a coaching workshop. I just steal right from there because I find them insightful. Break into groups of 5, discuss it, put it on a flip chart paper, come back, and we put it up on the board and they present, and share your ideas with the group. So we did that, and I took notes based on that. And you'd be surprised at how little athletes want, or the things they want. They're not asking for private jets to fly around. The little team dynamics they want, or where they see gaps are. It's like listening was big. And then in that meeting, the number one thing I did was we started our Lancer men's soccer book club. So we started reading the Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yes,
but
I am.
he wrote the Talent Code. And
Yep.
I felt like, or they felt like, before I was hired, the culture was a little bit broken. And actually, the person they hired before me got brought in because he was a little bit more old school disciplinarian approach to culture than me. I'm a little bit longer term, different approach, a little bit more like softer side of things, like a little bit more man management. I'll be a little bit more patient. I want the payoff in the long term. I'll eat shit, so to speak, in the short term sometimes, to work through a problem. My ego is oftentimes at the far back of a situation, and I have thick skin, so I'm willing to work through things. So, yeah, we started reading the Culture Code, which was like, I didn't even understand what I was doing when I did it. But think about this: if you have a group of 25 or 30 men and you put them in groups of 5 and have them talk about the way successful organizations are running culture and have them learn, the added benefit of this is you start seeing that their cooperative behaviors in the groups start reflecting what they're reading. So I started to get like a multi-level layer of learning and really laying the groundwork for the culture. And actually, because we've had so many players now come in that are, didn't experience that this year on the roster, our leaders suggested that maybe we do that again, do a refresher course on the Culture Code, and make it mandatory reading. Then after that, we did the same with Legacy, the book about the All Blacks. And then we have our leaders have some different books. So we do the same thing. And it's, again, I just looked at like that, I always use the phrase like the Mr. Miyagi terms of like ways of, how you can teach them something without thinking they're learning. And it's like, so that. So the biggest thing was we sat with our men first was, and I know it sounds cliche, was like showing vulnerability and opening up within our program. And in order to do that, it was redefining toughness. Toughness is the ability to, share or open up when you're suffering. Toughness isn't the ability to like retaliate on the field or to whine to the ref. Toughness is the ability to play through it. What toughness is the ability to stand up for your teammate, even though maybe off the field you've been having some beef. You're still going to have his back when we battle, or in training, you're still going to treat him like a teammate. Toughness is the ability to stand up and push through when things aren't going your way, and not just react and lash out. And I think that was big for us, and really focusing on a Lancer mentality. And every program has an acronym, but for us, the L was about love and sacrifice for each other, and the A was about accountability and attitude, and that's kind of where we focused. Our first 2 years was about love and sacrifice for one another, what it really means, and the A was for accountability and attitude, and what it really means to be accountable and responsible to one another. So
the cool thing that I love about this is, one, you brought ownership to everyone. Like, you clearly said, look, we're all in this together. So we'll break you up into pods, but the information they share with you, like you just talked about earlier about listening, like that's completely backwards to what most coaches are like. Most coaches come up and go, I'm the expert. I'll tell you what to do. Maybe like the previous coach. And we don't get as much input. Like you said, the kids aren't looking for a whole lot, but they are looking for being respected by their coach, and their needs being met. And the other thing that I love about this is, I haven't heard anything about we had to fix their tactics, or we had to fix their technical, or this and this is something I learned with my first year of high school this past fall. When I first started, was going, oh, we're going to play this formation, we're going to do this, we're going to bet out of the back. And then when I got into the mix, I was like, oh, that's not even like anywhere close. That's like a small snippet of what I need to take care
Yeah.
of. There's so much relationship building and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, just to your going, like, usually the coach is the expert. I think the first in my first, monologue to the players was, because I was an assistant coach for a long time, and the program had helped out, and been a goalkeeper coach, been assistant with the women, been assistant with the men. And my first phrase to the players was, assistant coaches talk a lot of shit, because it's really easy being an assistant. You can think, oh, we should have done this, or we should do this, or this guy should play. Of course, I agree with you. Yeah, yeah. But when you're the head coach, well, we're gonna find out. And what I was really fortunate. The group of veterans who stayed on, either came back for a fifth year. Canada, our senior year is our fifth year, or a couple transfers I had come in from the college, really bought in. We brought in like five that first year, five additional players to the recruiting class who were transfers or who decided to come back, who I'd actually coached them or been an assistant when they were coaching before. Kieran, they supported me so much. Um, Even when they knew when I had screwed up, they to have a set of veterans as a young coach. Probably I'm 10 years or almost 10 years younger than any coach in the conference. To have a young coach who kind of got thrust in the job late, to have a group of seniors have your back. Like, those guys could have been like, whatever, this is the third coach I've had in 3 years, I'm done. To have my back and to help me lay the groundwork, I think I'm forever thankful to those guys, because they didn't have to believe in what I'm doing or buy in. They didn't, like, the cultural change didn't benefit them, right? Like, they're like, year one, yeah, we made the playoffs, and to be honest, had we lost in a shootout, had we not lost that shootout, teams were scared to play us. We came on really strong at the end of the year, and teams were getting scared to play us. And we just found the right mix of old and young. And yeah, I'm forever thankful. And then, the second layer of gratitude is, the players I have who came in that year, who are our core leaders now, they're growing up and I'm growing up in different ways. You know, I'm I always feel like in life, people get promoted before they're ready. It happens in every organization, in business and stuff. It's like, oh, you're the top this. So okay, now you're the top sales guy. You're in management now. You're the top this. Now you're, like, and so yeah. So as I'm growing into the position, I'm very fortunate to have, there's guys who have come in who are in their third year going into their fourth as athletes, just like me. And they've really bought in. And we have a shared accountability that, we're all going to make mistakes. And I haven't been afraid to sit down and been like, guys, I got that one wrong. I should have dealt with this issue different. I shouldn't have, whatever. Because I think leadership starts from the top. You got to be an example. It starts with, I know I'm not perfect, far from it. So, but we're gonna address those mistakes as they come and not be afraid of them, not just sweep them under the rug.
The cool thing that I love hearing is that earlier you talked about them when their groups where they were getting more open with their vulnerability about, and then having you as that role model before in front of them saying, look, man, on that play or on this session or whatever, I should have gone a different direction. I think is huge for young men to kind of link into. The other thing that I love about, again, as a coach is I don't think coaches give enough props to their players. They make the program, and for you to come out and honestly say, look, that first group supported me, had me, picked me up when I was down, like that's like a huge thing that you don't hear a whole lot of coaches say. And the other thing that really was hard for me to wrap my head around is they literally jumped in at the opportunity to read, which I know, like the idea of reading a book. Um, how, how did that? I mean, how did that kind of like dynamic kind of work about, or was that something one of the players kind of came about and said, "Look, we need something to kind of grasp onto."
No, it kind of, like, I come up with some quirky stuff, or not quirky, but different stuff. And you know, it just came to me one time. And I know other coaches are doing it a lot now. I'll say over the last 5 years, the stuff that I was really into 5 years ago is getting more mainstream now, and I'm so happy for that.
Mhm.
This isn't as crazy an idea in 2021 as it might have felt like in 2016. You know, not that it was crazy back then, but I think the content, I sent a huge thank you to Daniel Coyle in that it's written well. It's written in entertaining snippets. I don't know if you've read it, but it's really broken up into cool little chapters and it dives right in. So I think picking the right topic. I mean, having the reading War and Peace and a big thick book wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But we did, break it in sections, and then in the summer we were only able to do, conference calls. We weren't able to get everybody in person, but then we did a mini camp in the July before the season, and that's when we got almost all the way through the book. And when they presented, and I think when they had a shared accountability to each other, you know, um, I know not everybody read it word for word. I mean, we all went to high school and college, and we know exactly what the difference between skimming and reading.
Mhm.
But audiobooks make it possible too. A lot of guys, like they said, I just listen to it on the way to and from work every day in my car. And yeah, it was guys bought in because they saw it started to be relevant, right? We do a lot of team culture discussions that aren't soccer related. Like one of my favorites was, I don't know if you remember, when Jimmy Butler wanted out of Minnesota. He wanted to be traded in the NBA,
Mhm.
and he had a practice, and he got all the second stringers or third stringers on his team at practice, and he scrimmaged the starters, and he beat them, and he walked out of the gym and was yelling at the GM, "You need me, you need me." And it was all in the news. And that week we have a weekly team meeting where usually we do some sort of team building or culture, whatever. The topic was that, and a group had to be, what would you do if you were the player? What would you do if you were the other players? How would you handle this if you were the GM? How would you handle this if you were the coach? To get them kind of thinking about how all these events, like how we respond to these events. I'm not saying that one moment defines the season, but how we respond to one moment can define a season.
Mhm.
And if we do it the right way, that can be the energy that pushes us over the top, or it can be the energy that pushes us over the edge in a bad way. And you know, we got to keep that in mind. And when our moment comes, or when the opportunity comes, hopefully we're able to think it through and attack it together in a good way.
How did you see, so everybody hears like the culture building and all this like good stuff and guys are buying in. How did you see that impacting what was going on the field?
Well, I mean, the first year was tough. I'll be honest. If there was one way to describe a lot of the players, a lot of the seniors we had our first year, would have been ego. Past reports on those guys would have been like hard to coach, hard to talk to. And so people didn't think, especially some of the guys that had to stay back a senior year, like they said, he's got nothing to play for. Why would he, like, it's going to be dangerous bringing in that transfer from the college. He's going to be, so I had to mix all these hot tempers in together. And it really helped because, during the week, the talk was about these issues, and it really kind of, again, got the focus off the incident on field, but then they started to see how it was applicable on field. One thing we did, for example, you've was our first road trip. We did our game. We had the players do the game analysis of their games. We always do analysis of the opponent, but in year one, we didn't do any analysis, an abundance of analysis of ourselves, because I think it's really tough in a short season, unless there's a significant issue. A lot of times game film of past games is just highlighting people's mistakes and then dwelling on them. And in men's and women's soccer, I mean, I coach girls soccer at a youth level and have assisted with the women. Highlighting people's mistakes doesn't frequently go well unless we have the trust to discuss how to fix them. So we actually had them do their own film analysis, and you watch these guys try to navigate around not hammering someone for their mistakes. Because in the heat of the moment, it's easy to blame someone on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where we got to was, that was pretty magical. And then after our two road trips, we played a game at home against Laurier, and we tied 1-1 or 0-0. And it was a rainy night, and it was a very heated game, and it wasn't the result we were looking for. But one of our veterans, like forever thankful for, Jamar Redhead. We had our meeting in the training room after, because we had a quick turnaround, so guys were already ice bath, stuff like that. So we have what we're called after action reviews. It's something from the culture code. It's a Navy SEAL tactic where after a game, the players lead the debrief, not the coach. So it's a Navy SEAL tactic where they talk about what happened in battle. It's called AAR, after action review. We were doing our AAR, and Jamar said, "You know what, guys, this is the first time in my 5 years as a Lancer that nobody yelled at each other on the field in a negative way. We didn't bring that negativity on the field in a negative way. We got on each other, we pushed each other, but there was no bickering." And that's when I knew it was impacting. When a player not only can not only are we not bickering, but they recognize that we're moving forward together. That when a mistake happens in a game, we're working through it, and that's where we've gotten. Some would argue right now maybe we're too nice of a culture, but I'd rather be starting here than where we were 3 years ago. And because I don't think it's too nice we have a culture, I just think we're right now a little bit naive on the compete level we need now. That's going to be required to take the next step.
So the one thing that I love about this too is it seems like everybody that is all the people that have ownership in this, from players to staff, um, all know that this is a process that we're building towards something. So it's not because we battle this nowadays with all I got to do is click one button on my phone and I have instant access to whatever. So is patience one of those things that you have to continually just kind of like, even for yourself and for your players, keep repeat, like, look, we're building towards something. And I think the fact that you said earlier is so big for like seniors and those that know maybe I'm not going to reap the benefits now, but I know that in 4 or 5 years down the road, you're going to comment back to how great that group was, that first group that came through, and how they were kind of an impetus for where you're at.
Yeah, I think that I think you have to separate success from the result. So I think, and the reason I've focused so much on that, if you help the athletes do that, you can help them achieve success. So somebody told me that before I took this job, when I was asking my mentors who coach at universities around the US, and I won't say who said this one, but he said, "Ryan, unless you're prepared to lose every game, don't take the job." Because I kind of thought that this wasn't job going to become available. So I kind of said, unless you're prepared to lose every game, and then if you lose every game, what defines success for you? I was like, ooh, and that sent me down a rabbit hole one weekend, right? Because that's a question. Wow. Okay. And then, then you start thinking about, I could be here 25 years and never win a championship. I mean, I could do a really good job. I could never, only one guy gets to win. Historically, Windsor hasn't won in the last 25 years. So what am I gonna like? How self-centered is it to think that I'm the guy in the next 25 years to win? Now I'm going to put this so people don't think I'm also the guy that is not allowed to play games at family events because I'm too competitive. So when I come to culture building, I start from a point of too competitive, and I go with this thing, and this is what's success if I don't ever win, and that just drives me crazy. And I think that being able to define success for the players and getting them to understand how we can have a good performance and lose, and how we can have a bad performance and win, and be focusing on working towards positive performance in training every day and in game. I mean, I would say training becomes more of our focus. The game is just kind of part of our process. When you start doing that, I think that's what's helped us. Also, we've done a lot of journaling as a group, which helps you put players in the moment. So something you have to be really not into, but we bring on the road trip, you bring your uniforms, your equipment, your balls, whatever. Men's soccer has a bag of our journals. Everybody has their own personal journal. And sometimes journals are really simple. Like, we usually do 2 a week during practice, and then we either do a reflective journal after the game or one before. I never overload them with both, because then you're journaling 4 times on the weekend just becomes too much. Sometimes it's like, what are your 3 goals for today? But sometimes it's like, what was the most painful moment in your life? So sometimes we dig deep and we ask our players who wants to share at the end of the journaling. So we practice at 6:30 in the morning, which I love because it's like us against the world, silent, peaceful, no social media, your phone's not going, right? Like nothing like that, like, and um, more and more guys feel comfortable sharing, and you'll see our veterans be a lot more comfortable sharing and set the standard with what are the things I'm afraid of, what are the things I aspire to be, who's my hero in life, when did I feel let down, how can I help pick each other up. Those things are kind of what laid the foundation for our culture, and those are the things during the pandemic that we've missed probably as a culture, is those moments, and because that was our momentum. We had like a tidal wave of positive momentum off the field, and I think our guys are kind of clamoring and craving that right now.
The one thing that I absolutely love is how many eh, opportunities you allow the players to have where they get to just kind of let emotions out or feelings or almost like decisions or react. Like you said, how do we react to an obstacle? Like it's going to occur in a game, if a ref call or a hard foul by the other team or something, how do we react? And I think it's important, it sounds like, that if they have already gone through and thought about it, then you have a better idea when the actual thing occurs, what to deal with. And I think the other thing that's so cool that's making me think, like with my high school group, is finding ways for kids to communicate or players to communicate. Because a lot of them aren't big on talking on the phone, and even it's hard even with the text, as you lose the emotion and whatever. Do you read the players' journals, or is it kind of their thing, and then if they're comfortable, they present it, and that's their opportunity to
So we
get
have
it
a
out
we have
there?
we have a we have a sticker system. Um, you know, thank God for my wife. She went to the when I got all the journals, I'm like, I thought, oh man, how am I gonna? So we just have green. I can read their journal at any time. Yellow, I have to ask. Red, no reading. So they keep it on the outside of their journal. The stickers are in our journal bag. So anytime we went too deep and the guy doesn't want us reading theirs, that's okay. Um, when there is a red sticker, I make note of that, because that means we went somewhere that is probably somewhere that this person either needs to bury deeper or we need to untie that knot eventually. And but if we're having success, players will feel comfortable sharing their you know moments. I've shared my most vulnerable moments with my teammates. As a staff, I share them. As a as a teammate, I was always an open book when I was a player, and now as a coach. So it's I think that helps you go to a level. If you know someone, like truly know someone, you're willing to cover for them. You're willing to make that run back. You're willing to to be a little bit understanding when the mistake happens in a game. When they're a person, if you just look at them as the guy who plays attacking mid and he didn't get you the ball, then maybe you're going to get frustrated. But if you're looking at it as a human being and teammate that didn't, maybe you understand he's a human just like you, and you got to work through it, and you got to find a way to be better next time. So
It sounds like too that you do a lot of reading yourself, a lot of self-reflecting, and learning about all these different types of things. What spurred you into? Have you always been kind of drawn to this type of thing and like bettering yourself and like
yeah,
I don't want to say self-help books, but
yeah,
like culture
yeah,
building and just like team and all this type of stuff?
yeah. I think that like I was a psych major. I started off as a psych major, so uh, people fascinate me. And then being a youth coach, a youth soccer coach, like different ways to bring the best out in people have always made me really think. And then, I always say that coaching at a university level and college level teaches me a lot of how to approach youth, but coaching youth teaches you a lot about how to approach what we think are like men, but are really just older kids. Like, if you and I reflect back to what we were like when we were 18, 19, 20, exactly, right? We
Yeah.
have a good laugh about ourselves.
Yes.
And so we got to remember that. We have to remember that that's who we're dealing with. So I try to be mindful of that. But yeah, I'm always passionate, probably because I made mistakes in my life or gotten into, gone down roads that I felt like I was the worst version of myself, or I let anger get a hold of me or negativity or whatever. And I wanted to work through that. And I think everybody still does. But, I think about, putting people in that peak performance mindset or environment, how much more positive, of an outcome we can have.
So the other thing was, so a couple weeks ago, I talked with your brother, who is the women's head coach. What's the dynamic been having your brother as the other coach of the other soccer program for the Lancers?
I mean, it's I wouldn't want it. I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. You know, uh, I love it. Like, to the dream of doing this with your family is is it's awesome. I wouldn't. It would take quite the opportunity to change this. He might not always like. I'm a little bit more lighthearted and less serious than he is, so I'll have a good laugh sometimes, or I'll be joking. But to be able to go up and down on the travel on the bus and have him sit across from me in the front seat is pretty cool. Um, yeah, I can't say enough how cool it is to, because with our busy lives, that's a lot of the time we get together, right? Like, he's got a 1-year-old daughter, I have a 1-year-old niece, and my wife's expecting in a month.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm expecting a little baby girl as well. So life gets busy, and yeah, the opportunity to grow closer is really cool. And work together. I think we've really worked at growing the programs together, and collaborate whenever we can, and really do things like, I know we talked about the fundraiser for the scholarship for before. Our community involvement, we try to link together. Even now, getting to the point of like culture building and alumni relations, tactical stuff, like things that we can do together wherever we can collaborate and be efficient with our resources. We try to, and we want the men and women to feel like they're not just part of a team, right? You're part of a program that's part of an athletic department, that's part of a institution. Like, you have to be more. It has to be more than just what's on the field. So the starting point, that's for us. The easy partner is the women's team, and then we work from there, right? And if we build culture in the same way, and we build tactics in a similar way, and we're all speaking the same language, then that's going to make us more proud of who we are, right? So, um, but yeah, I can't say enough how much family means to me, and the opportunity to know that no matter how busy we get, I get to spend the weekends in the fall with my brother. You know, it's amazing.
The cool thing was too, when you started putting your like three-step process out there, I'm pretty sure that's the identical same thing that Daniel shared with
Yeah.
me, or very similar, of like what
It's
is
the exact same thing.
what it means to
I
be a
won't take
leader.
credit. I won't take credit for it. I'll let him give me credit for it. But yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cultural stuff that, like I said, him and I get to collaborate on. Um, so we're able to refine it. So for example, if I started something and we start going back and forth, opportunity to create magic that way.
Has this always been kind of your relationship, or has this kind of evolved through like going into coaching, and now that you've got family and like and it's growing and you're becoming parents and all that, has that kind of made it, or as kids were you the same way?
No, I think we had three brothers. We have the youngest brother, Alex, who may be the best coach of us all. He's in coaching in soccer. To be honest, like, I'm probably, if I were to rate us as coaches, I'm probably be third. I probably have a really deep understanding of or deep passion. I don't want to say understanding, because I don't know if anybody can ever understand people, but a deep passion for understanding people. And I think that Daniel is probably deep understanding of tactics, like loves that part of the game. And Alex has the youngest brother probably has both. So he's not a full time in soccer, but it's funny that I'm the one who's full time in football. And, that's a blessing. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And, you know, um, it's really cool. But yeah, like, I know Daniel touched on it. Over 3 years ago, we lost our father, suddenly. And so family's become even more important to us. Um, you know, Maybe 4 years ago, I maybe thought about leaving the Windsor area, uh, and pursuing soccer elsewhere, and that moment probably changed everything for me. I don't think me being the oldest, I just think I would never want to leave my mom. So I always want to be here for her. So, 6 months after my dad passed, this job fell into my lap, and all of a sudden now I have the opportunity to, instead of just being a club coach trying to make a go of life, to be able to, between club and this, have a career in footy. And you know had met my wife, and get married and start a family. And things kind of work out in a magical way. And like I said, if somebody tried to tell me that my dad from up there didn't get me this job, that we'd have to have a big argument. And I'm not a religious guy. I just think that sometimes things work out a certain way. And yeah, so the freedom to do that, and work with our family. And now my mom gets to come to every game, because the women play before the men, so she's able to come and catch both of our games. And our wives get to come and be there, and our kids will get to come and be there. And together, keeping that family together is huge. So
With what would the dynamic be if the three of you were on the same staff? Do you think that would work, or is it too much of like, no?
so yeah, I'm gonna say that for me it'd be no problem. Like, I'm willing to pick up cones and put down cones for anyone. Daniel's the middle child, so he's the most sensitive. So we got to. He'd have to be the head coach, because I don't think it'd work. I don't think it'd work if I was the head coach. So I would just be. I would be the guy whose job to keep everybody happy, and I'd let Daniel and Alex work things out. Yeah, I think. No, I think it'd be quite an. It'd be a dream, Kieran. Honestly, but in saying that, I'll say that the one thing that makes the men's program great right now is the staff I have. Uh, we talked a lot about like knowing your weaknesses and stuff, and you know taking on people and the staff, through James, through Shane, through Kyle, through our training staff, is able to make my job very easy. So James' breakdown of tactical analysis of ours and the opponents, feels, that's what he's passionate about. Shane links technical ability to physiology. He kind of has the ability to be a trainer and stuff like that. Kyle works with our goalkeepers, bringing on Leighton Speechy Price to work on our attackers. So I'm lucky I have a phenomenal staff. So I'm good, and it kind of makes my job easy. I just have to be okay. I just have to not screw it up. That's kind of my role. My
Don't
role.
get in the
But
way,
but
coach.
yeah, I always said that I'd love to coach with Daniel one day, in some form one day. I think we will. But for right now, it's this is great because the coach and the director of soccer before us, Steve Hart, there was Steve Vanini coached for a year in the men's program before, but Steve Hart's kind of left his legacy on the program, took Windsor from a very small, um, OUA soccer wasn't huge. I'd say more comparable with like a smaller NAIA school, to now I'd say is getting bigger. I'd be more comparable to like a D2. Like we go play against D1 schools, like mid majors and stuff. Uh, he took it to a new level and laid the groundwork for us. And now it's, you know, my brother and I to try to take this program from good to great and make the gains and gaps in where we are. I think we finish, middle of the pack all too often. I think we want to see ourselves during in the top three of the conference more often than not. Instead of just like once a cycle, we want to be there on a regular basis. So
And for you to get there, you said the one thing you've mentioned is now we have to learn that next level of what competitiveness looks like. Is that just through like increased intensity and training, or is that just playing better, more like a maybe a stronger schedule? Even though it sounds like you're playing some quality teams that are at a high level,
Yes.
how do you build in that competitiveness, that ability? Because I even learned it this year. Like it's great to be in games, but there's a different level of mentality that it takes to actually get the results.
Yeah. So I think for us, you know, we got to reflect and look at how we got all the things in that you wanted to already. So how did you get in the love and vulnerability and everything in our program? We layered it in with consistency and behavior, consistency and translating those values into actions. So if compete level is now going to be one of our values, and it is as we work through our mentality, that's kind of where we are now. It's just what was happening before is competitiveness was getting jammed into a broken culture, and that's when you get too much of like infighting, right? Now when a teammate goes at confront somebody, they can do it in a way that is honest, and there's a like player will receive that. So an honest compete level at training has to become a habit now. Winning has to be, something we want. I'll give you an example of an internal conflict right now. So, in practice, most teams have the losers run. We're going to play 4v4, losers do some sprints. But our leaders in year one instituted the policy that if one person runs, we all run. So now we're at this like, you know, uh, catch 22 of like, well, now everybody's running. So now there's no point in the losers running. But what James and I, the assistant, got into a conversation is it's not about the running, it's about the desire to win and constantly making things a competition in our everyday. And just little things like burpees or like little things that make things a competition is where we're going. Stealing some stuff from Anson Durant with his competitive cauldrons and stuff in a little way. I think also it takes bringing in people that have that competition level. Some people are in a different place when they train, right? Great people, greatness, like and great players are, you know. So I think creating an environment where it's okay to be like that and showing people it is the same way we showed people it was okay to be vulnerable, right? So it's okay to win, and it's okay, and that starts from the top, right? So like last week I did a calculation. There's like 185 days till season. So I got up at 6:30 in the morning and I went for a run, and I sent a video out to the players, kind of calling them out, saying, I'm up before 7 going for a run. You guys are sleeping. What are you doing? And then throughout the week, all of a sudden our guys started taking the reign, going up, because we were doing that fundraiser. But so kind of needs to, sometimes you got to lead by example, and you got to show guys where before it was the example of vulnerability that I had to maybe show to show them it's okay in a quiet way, not being like it's okay to show but like slowly, right? Instead of me telling them on Sunday night to go for a run tomorrow, I didn't need to do that. I just needed to post a video of myself, out of shape and overweight, going for a run while they're sleeping. And the first thing they wake up to in our WhatsApp group chat is, Coach was out for a run this morning in the cold, basically calling us out, saying there's 185 days still training, and he's up running and we're doing nothing. Right. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you have an awesome staff put together. Um, was that some like leftover from the previous regime, or is that something that came about? Because I'm assuming that you had similar conversations that you're having with the players with them of like, hey, here's how we need to like, here's my 3-step kind of program building, and here's like we're not just rocking and rolling with the thing. And I think it's cool that you have guys that seem to um, complement you really well. So you love the culture, you love building kids up, and you're like all that. And but you have a guy that's very like he loves tactics, and this one loves the technical, and this it sounds like a perfect mesh of coaches. And I know just listening to it and listening to what you're saying, that has to have not been by accident.
No, it really took even like we just added Leighton, who was a former player and an all Canadian, like leading goal scorer back when I was an assistant. And like, yeah, it was just by design because, again, success leaves clues, they say, and just go look at every successful leader in the history of the world, or every successful president, or every successful leader of any team or organization. You got to know your weaknesses. The first things to do is self-evaluation. And, I either have to be willing to fill a role, or I have to go out and actually fill a role. So if I'm not going to be, I'll give you an example. I made a decision my first 2 years. I'm not going to be the rah motivational guy before the game and at halftime, because at one point during the season I may have to push us over the edge. But if I start giving those speeches frequently, it doesn't work. So we talked about it as a staff about how we're going to divide up these speeches. So again, I think as a leader, you have to be willing to fill a role, or be okay with somebody else filling it. And I think a lot of times that's where people fail. They're not okay. Like before a big game away at Mac, James gave a phenomenal speech before our game. And I don't know if any other head coaches, if many others are okay with that. I don't know if when we are setting up a set piece, another coach is really okay with assigning Kyle, who's our goalkeeper coach, having him work with on set pieces, or having James work on attacking set pieces. You have to really be okay with that, or else I got to do it. But if I'm not going to do it like 100%, then it's got to be somebody else. I'll give you the best example with me. For me, like I said, I was a goalie. Goalies have something wrong with them, inherently wrong with them inside our head. So I never needed to like get hyped up before a game. I was always here. I needed to calm down. And so I used to joke around, because at practice, I'd be the guy who was like going so hard that I needed a sense of humor and to make light of things. So I'm not the best guy to lead the warm up. That's why James and Shane lead our warm up. Shane's like, not only is he a strength trainer by trade, but also phenomenal midfield player and very disciplined and can keep the guys in line. My job during the warm up is to check on everybody mentally as a coach, to kind of like pop into the session with our defenders that James doing. And, are they, is their head right? Then I go over to the goalkeepers, have a little conversation with them. Make sure they're okay. That's my role. My role is not to get their body ready. That we have professionals for that. My role is not to worry about injuries. We have professionals for that. But if you do all the planning before and everybody knows their role, then it makes that pretty simple. And I know that during the warm up, I'm not the best guy to be disciplined, because as a habit, unless I'm going to change my temperament, that's not for me. I got guys who are disciplined and willing to do that. I'm going to go do what I'm doing and check in with the guys that I know are going to push us over the top today. Or maybe players gone distant. He wasn't vocal as he was today on the bus. Man, what's up? This guy may be having relationship issues. He's stressed about a class. What's going on? Usually he's the center of attention. He's quiet today. I'm going to pull him aside and have that little, so that's my dynamic. That's what I chose, or that's what as a staff we decided was good, so.
I think it's refreshing to hear, because we do this with the players. They have certain roles and responsibilities within our playing style and our philosophy, and positionally and what have you. And I've never really thought about it is that as coaches, we're in the same spot. We have certain roles and responsibilities. And I think it's really cool that it seems like it's very clear to your coaches that, hey, here's the thing that I need from you in terms of this. Because I think a lot of times, like you kind of joked about picking up cones or anybody, but that sometimes ends up being that's what the assistant coach does, is they just pick up the cones the whole time. But they clearly, with everything that you've shared throughout this conversation, is everyone's got some type of strength that they can bring to the table. And you are open enough to like, hey, I'm going to allow James to bring what he is very good at, and I'm going to let that rock and roll, and I'm going to stay the heck out of the way.
Yeah. I think that's crucial. And you go to picking up cones. One thing we got, like, the second thing after the book club, I got rid of rookie duties with our program.
Mhm.
That was advice from Nate Norman. I don't know if you know him. He used to coach at Western Mish. Now he coaches the women at Notre Dame. And I took that straight from him, that I didn't need rookie duties. I just needed guys. I just needed this to be done. So I don't care how it's divvied up. The whole point is sometimes everybody's got to pick up cones, and sometimes everybody's got to pick up this, and nobody's bigger than anything. If there's water bottles need to be picked up, we pick them up. If like that's just what we do. We just don't leave it, you know. And that was reinforced kind of by the sweep the sheds, Monteith in the book about the All Blacks. But yeah, for us, never too big or too small. If somebody else can do it better, and I think that's, yeah, it comes down to knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and being okay with that, and knowing that at this point, like I think Daniel referenced, like, yeah, there's some times where I'll even bring him in for tactical stuff because I know that maybe I'm too close. Like I need vision. I need people who are a little bit removed, and I think that's tough. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to that. So sometimes I'll spend so much time dwelling on little things, little minutiae that it'll stress me out. Like if sometimes I'll need to lock myself in a room to work through how we're going to approach a game once I have all the information. So I just want to get it right. Like if a formation or a tactics aren't adding up right going into the weekend, it'll drive me crazy. There'll be no sleep going into the weekend, but once I figure it out, I can sleep like a baby.
So that's one of those bonuses of having your brother in the mix, is when you do kind of hit that wall, if you're like, okay, I'm just banging my head right now and not making progress. I feel like I'm missing something. He can sometimes shine a light on it because he's kind of outside of.
Yeah, it's been beneficial, and I think he's used myself and our staff in the same way, right? Like because we travel together and we see each other play, and I'd even say more so with like off the field situations, dynamics between athletes. Hey guys, here's what's going on with my team. This kind of came up, and we kind of work together as a staff. And I hope we can continue to do that and integrate that more and more, because we give the perspective. Well, here's how it looks outside. So maybe that is a problem. Maybe you don't see it from inside, but here's how it looks from afar. So I think that's that's big.
Ryan, this conversation has been awesome. I've enjoyed talking with your brother and you. The stuff you guys are sharing is like so awesome. And I'm super excited to see how Windsor on both the men's and women's side continues to grow over the next few years. Because it sounds like you've got like the foundation is there. And now it's just about getting, maybe a little bit more quality and just more, like you said, maybe not just that, but just the recognition of what it's going to take to get your team up above into that first, second, third kind of level.
Yeah. We've like I said, first year we lost in a shootout in the playoffs, which is never an enjoyable thing. Last year we lost in the 120th minute, a penalty called in the last 30 seconds of extra time. Nobody likes that. It's 2 years ago. I still haven't let that call go.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Even though we're supposed to
was it the
like
right
only
call?
focus on the controllables.
Yeah, that's right.
Let it go. Focus on the controllables until it gets into the playoffs. So yeah, so as men, we and I really think we overachieved last year. So it was good for us to be in that environment. But yeah, the most telltale sign of where the program's going is that our seniors weren't sad; they were happy for the direction the program's going when they left after their last game. Like, yeah, everybody was sad they lost, but when they spoke to the team on the bus on the way home, it tells a lot about what they gave and what they believe in and what they bought into, where it's going. We brought in some of the best recruits we've ever brought in last year in 2020. Didn't get to see them on the field, but we've been able to prepare them. We're bringing in one hell of a class in 21. It's up to me to screw it up. We got the right players in place. We got the right staff, and we got the right momentum. So if I can keep steering the ship and guiding the ship down the canal, we'll do just fine. And just super grateful that the department continues to support myself and this long-term vision for the program, and the city is the Windsor and the soccer community in general supports us. So
That's so awesome. Like I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed this discussion and chat. If people want to kind of follow up and follow you, touch base with you, maybe some questions about some of the culture building things you've shared, or just to follow uh, your team and what have you, what's some ways that they can connect with you?
Yeah, you can you can share my email. It's just ryan.mendonca@uwindsor.ca, and then it's Coach Mendonca on Twitter, on Instagram, and like Lancer Soccer. Give us a follow. We're always doing something out there on social media, so you can go ahead and share those when when you send it out. And yeah, feel free to get in touch. I love talking about this stuff all day. I could talk about it all day. So
Well, I appreciate it, Ryan. I'm going to shut this thing down. This is Coach's Corners Chats, and this is Karen with Ryan Mendonca, and I'm out. Peace.
yeah, thanks.